Welcome to Public Speaking Lecture Part 2. In the handout that's online, you'll see a poem entitled The Woodcarver. And maybe poem is not the right word. It could be considered a parable written by Chuang Tzu about 2,500 years ago. Chuang Tzu was a Chinese philosopher. Then it was translated in English by Thomas Merton. And the poem goes something like this, and it has a lot to say about public speaking. King the master carver made a bell stand of precious wood. When it was finished, all who saw it were astounded. They said, "It must be the work of spirits." The Prince of Lu said to the master carver, "What is your secret?" King replied, "I'm only a workman. I have no secret. There is only this. When I began to think about the work you commanded, I guarded my spirit, did not expend it on trifles that were not to the point. I fasted in order to set my heart at rest. After 3 days fasting, I had forgotten gain and success. After 5 days, I had forgotten praise or criticism. After 7 days, I had forgotten my body with all its limbs. By this time, all thought of your highness and the court had faded away. All that might distract me from the work had vanished. I was collected in the single thought of the bell stand. Then I went into the forest to see the trees in their own natural state. When the right tree appeared before my eyes, the bell stand also appeared in it, clearly beyond doubt. All I had to do was put forth my hand and begin. If I had not met this particular tree, there would have been no bell stand at all. What happened? My own collected thought encountered the hidden potential in the wood. From this live encounter came the work which you ascribe to the spirits. So here's this amazing story, and written in a masterful way. And you get the gist of the story, right? The Prince of Lu comes to the master carver and commands him, that's not a request, commands him to make a bell stand. He has no choice. And there's a lot at stake. If it goes well, then he elevates and establishes his role in the royal court. If it goes badly, he ruins his standing, maybe even his career. So he makes the bell stand. And the story begins at the end. And it begins with a surprise. What doesn't happen at the end is everybody says, "Wow, you really are the master carver. You're a great carver. This is a great piece of work." Instead, it almost comes across like an accusation. A human being didn't do this. Spirits did this. This is the work of spirits. So that the Prince of Lu comes to the master carver and said, "What's your secret?" It's not surprising, first of all, that they say this. This is an old idea that when we tap into a creative energy, we are tapping into some energy that's sort of beyond normal human realm. In the Judeo-Christian Bible, in the New Testament, it's said that all scripture is inspired by God. And the word used there, I believe, is entheos, which implies that it means to breathe into, that God breathes into the writer. They're not writing of their own creativity, but God is breathing into them. The word music that we have comes from the Greek, the muses, who were these creatures who whispered in the ears of the poets and the artists and the musicians to give them ideas and guide them in their creativity. It's an old idea that when we tap into a creative spirit, we're tapping into an energy that's sort of outside of the human realm. So they accuse him of somehow working with spirits, and the Prince of Lu says, "What's your secret?" And the master carver says, "Well, I don't have a secret. I'm just a workman. But there is this." And then he describes the process. And the process that he has is two things. He says, "I guarded my spirit, did not expend it on trifles that were not to the point." And then he describes in detail that process. First of all, how does he guard his spirit? This is a very Taoist kind of idea, I think. To begin this great work, the first work is to do nothing. Just get quiet. And so he fasts for 7 days. And so he's just getting his heart at rest. And in getting his heart at rest, he's also distinguishing from what's important from what isn't important, the trifles. And then he lists the trifles. After 3 days fasting, I'd forgotten praise and criticism. After 5 days, after 3 days, I'd forgotten gain and success. After 5 days, I'd forgotten praise or criticism. After 7 days, I'd forgotten my body with all its limbs. And then he even has the nerve to look at the Prince of Lu and say, after 7 days, after this time, I had forgotten even your highness and the royal court. Even that was a trifle. All that mattered was the bell stand, the single thought of the bell stand. This is the true artistic integrity. The only thing he thinks about when he goes in the forest is the bell stand. He already knows what it looks like, so that when he finds the tree, he finds the bell stand. And he's even willing to go into the forest and come out empty-handed. If the tree doesn't match the bell stand, there's no bell stand. And then he finishes his explanation by saying this: what happened, my own collected thought encountered the hidden potential in the wood. From this live encounter came the work which you ascribe to the spirits. This says a lot about the process of writing a speech, of getting quiet, of going into introspection, contemplation, thinking about our values, our truth, what is our message, being still, and letting that message emerge on its own time, in its own way, and not being content with anything but our true message. We are looking for a live encounter